Hello, welcome to the Apple Insider podcast and a special episode all about what we've just now learned from Apple at WWDC 2024. I'm William Gallagher and today it's just you and me, plus the support of Clean My iPhone. More about that app later, and you must please also stick around for news of something coming next for the Apple Insider podcast, something specifically to do with all of Apple's new announcements. Right now, we have all of the WWDC news, and that's mostly what you and I are going to cover at this time. But already there are points to make, questions to be asked. And over the next days and weeks and months even, we will be testing out everything Apple has promised. Which means next weekend, you're going to get another extra episode, another Apple Insider special. This time with a developer who has an unusually wide experience with what WWDC is like for the makers of our favourite apps. And he's at this year's WWDC right now, so try stopping me asking him about what it's like getting to Apple Park. But now, this year's WWDC was a fire hose of new details, new improvements, new updates, and it did seem as if every bit of it had some tie to AI. After a year, or two even, of claims that Apple has fallen behind the rest of the industry with regards to artificial intelligence, Apple has given up pointing out that it's had machine learning for a decade, and instead it's launched a bid to even take over what AI stands for. Clearly it's Apple Insider, but now it's also Apple Intelligence, and there was a nice strapline. This is AI for the rest of us, said Apple's Craig Federighi. Here's the thing though, Apple spent a fraction over 40 minutes describing Apple Intelligence, but actually perhaps ironically, since they kept talking about automatic summarizing, you can summarize the whole thing much faster. Apple Intelligence, it will summarize text for you, whether that's in an email you've received that you can't be bothered to read, or it's in a meeting where you've just, for the first time ever, audio recorded in Apple Notes. It will optionally rewrite text to make it friendlier or more professional. Apple Intelligence can also create images to go alongside your text, and it will do that whether you explicitly tell it that you want a sketch of a car with toast on it or something, or when, say, the text in your document describes Paris. Very nicely, by the way, Apple has extended its existing remove background feature in Photos and made clean up. This is more image editing, more AI. What it can do is automatically erase distractions from the background of images, such as that time when someone photobombed your family while you were trying to get a nice shot of the Eiffel Tower with them. The aim of Apple Intelligence is to, yes, use exactly the kind of generative AI that we've been seeing in other apps like ChatGPT, and that we've seen go wrong in other apps too. Hello, Google Gemini. But also, Apple wants to do it in ways where it won't go wrong, where it will be useful, and where it will always be private. Apple Intelligence takes place almost entirely on your device, on your iPhone, on your Mac, on your iPad. Apple points out that rivals, they use the cloud, so they might know the world, but they don't know you, and Apple Intelligence is meant to be all about you. So Siri has been bolstered by Apple Intelligence to hopefully be more useful, hopefully be faster, and please also hopefully less prone to getting to say wrong. Yet, if Siri, with its new Apple Intelligence, determines that in fact it can't do this on device, it does need more, it does need the world of information. If Siri determines that actually ChatGPT could get you a better result, Siri will pass your query on to ChatGPT, but it will do so only after explicitly asking your permission. In fact, it looks like it asks every time too, so you will never be in doubt over whether a query is answered by Siri on your device or sent out to the cloud. And even when it goes to the cloud, Apple says it's not going to be logged, it's not going to be recorded. Plus, Apple says all of this is free. Apple is not charging more for AI features, not directly in the form of, say, a subscription, as had been previously rumoured. Even when Siri uses ChatGPT for you, that is free as well. But to be fair, Apple is going to make some cash here because Apple Intelligence is limited to specific devices. It requires the iPhone 15 Pro or iPhone 15 Pro Max, for instance. So iPhone 15 users, iPhone 15 Plus users, you may have the latest models, but you're not going to get Apple Intelligence. And nor will anyone on Intel-based Macs. Only Macs or iPads with the M1 processor or newer will get these Apple Intelligence features. But speaking of specific devices, while ultimately Apple did reveal that all of this Apple Intelligence is coming to all of its platforms, or at least those main ones, the iPhone, the iPad and the Mac, it did first do a roundup of what else is new on each of these, plus the Apple Watch, tvOS and the Vision Pro headset. As ever, it pays to listen to the iPhone first, though, because, well, that's Apple's most popular device, and it gets everything. It gets everything first, really. Why is Journal still not on the iPad? So, even if you're a Mac fan like me, or if you've been crossing your fingers about iPad improvements, also like me, let's take the iPhone and iOS 18 first. We've already had a tap to pay on iPhone where, you can hold your iPhone near a vendor's iPhone and pay a bill there. But now we're getting tap to cash. You and I could hold our iPhones together and pay each other money without exchanging, private contact details at the same time. That's an extension to tap to pay, isn't it? And much of iOS 18 is made up of extensions to existing features, such as Journal, like I just said. Journal, still on the iPhone, but while it's still on the iPhone only, it also now includes goal tracking. And it's the kind of streaks that some third-party rivals call it, the streak feature like where you tell it that you want to write for an hour every day, for instance, and then as you go, yes, I did it, no, I didn't, tracks what you do and you can see your progress for it. Nicely, by the way, Journal can now integrate with the Health app so that it can automatically record into your daily journal when you've told the Health app how you're feeling. The mindfulness feature in the Health app is now integrated into Journal. Apple has also extended Photos on iOS 18 in what it says is its biggest redesign ever, and it does look nice. Now photos are shown in a grid. It takes up as much of the screen as it can, or at least it does for about the top 2/3 of the screen. It leaves a kind of panel area at the bottom, which is where you can start a search, or where you can pick out what Apple calls collections, which are things like your favourite photos, or the people and pets section. Or swiping right on that grid of photos, you can go straight into specific collections you choose. Getting totally away from images, messages can now be sent via satellite, so extending the existing emergency SOS by satellite feature. Apps can also be locked away now, requiring Face ID before they open at all. And if you like how Mail has that send later feature, well, now you can enjoy it in Messages too. I think one particularly welcome addition, though, is a redesigned and extended Control Center. If you ever bother with Control Center on your iPhone, well, then it tends to be that you bother with it quite a lot. And so you end up filling it up and you have to scroll down to get to buttons at the bottom of the screen. Curiously, you're still going to have to scroll, but in iOS 18, Control Center makes it better by being divided into different pages. It means you can ignore what you don't use and get quicker access to what you do. The short version is just you're going to want iOS 18 on your iPhone. Please don't download the beta test version, not to an iPhone that you have to be sure will keep running anyway. But when Apple does release the final version of iOS 18 and you do rush to update it, maybe you should take a minute or three first to use the app I mentioned earlier, Clean My iPhone, which is sponsoring this extra episode of AppleInsider. Clean My iPhone, I've used this myself. It's a comprehensive and a careful iPhone cleaner app which is designed to free up space and organise things like your photo gallery. So it will remove duplicates, blurs actually in photos and other clutter. It also tests your network speed. It kind of simplifies photo management and does it all while keeping your data secure and private. And by the end of it, it works thoroughly through your phone and you end up having enough space for what Clear My iPhone describes as new experiences. And actually what I know is the room for installing updates. Even without all of iOS 18's new features, anytime you update any version of iOS, you need a lot of space just for that installation process. Once the update's installed, fine, then things go back to normal. But when I've been using Clear My iPhone before, I did it to clear out a lot of junk and let me update. But actually, it also saved me having to upgrade my iCloud storage as well. But anyway, speaking of the iPhone, okay, I still believe you cannot look at the iPhone and the iPad without seeing that they are from the same stock. And it's true. Everything you just heard about iOS 18 applies to iPadOS 18 as well. But there is more. There are a few specific iPad features. Actually, the one that impresses me the most, the kind of wow moment with the iPad, is that you can now handwrite a maths sum with your Apple Pencil, and then you get to the end of it and you handwrite an equal sign, and the iPadOS calculates the answer for you. And it will write that answer in what looks very much like your handwriting. In fact, this happens in both the brand new calculator app. We finally have a calculator app on the iPad, and it happens in the Apple Notes app. And in Notes, well, you can now scribble away as fast as you like, and Notes will work alongside you, straightening out your text, kind of making just a neater version of your handwriting. I mean, there have got to be limits. I am looking forward to seeing what it makes of my scroll. Hopefully more usefully, though, I'm also looking forward to a new way of getting around documents in any iPad app. Apps we're going to gain in iPadOS 18 a floating toolbar at the top of the screen, which gives you some controls, but then when you tap it, it will morph into a longer sidebar with more options. It's up to you what goes in the floating bit, so over time, you just have quick access to the things you need the most. I'm having kind of iPad renaissance a bit, and I'm really looking forward to testing like that. But of all of them, as much as I love the iPad and the iPhone, I am kind of a Mac guy, and the Mac has, of course, been updated. The new Mac operating system is macOS Sequoia. I particularly like that, actually, because I used to work on a computer system called Sequoia 30 years ago. Anyway, it wasn't remotely as good as macOS Sequoia. And part of the very good bits of it is actually easily the most visually impressive, easily the most noticeable, really, new feature. It doesn't sound like a Mac one. It sounds like another iPhone one because it's iPhone mirroring on your Mac. Right from your Mac, you can open up your iPhone, you can use the apps on it, you can swipe around, you can copy and paste, but all of it is happening on your Mac screen, and all of it is happening while your actual iPhone stays locked on your desk, in your bag, in your pocket, wherever you left it. This feels at first very much like remote control that we've had before between Macs and iPads, but rather than sending your cursor over to your actual iPhone screen, instead the screen comes to you. You see the iPhone on your Mac screen and you use it there. In fact, the iPhone becomes one more window on your Mac. And actually, that's one more window for you to manage, which means it's quite good, though we've now got some help. We tend, as Mac users, to have so many windows and documents and apps open that, in fact, there are already many ways of handling them so that we don't get lost in the mess. Some of those ways are made by Apple. It's why we have Stage Manager. It's why we have Spaces on the Mac. And it is also why we have at least half a dozen successful third-party window management tools. Now, they're in danger of being Sherlocked or replaced by Apple's own version, because now Windows in macOS Sequoia can automatically tile as you drag them around. That means if you drag any window to the edge of your screen, the Mac will offer to just resize it into a neat shape over there. This is actually something that Windows has done for a long time too, but Windows, Mac, third-party things, if you've never tried any window management tool, try Apple's in macOS Sequoia and you will appreciate how useful they are. So that's macOS Sequoia, iOS 18 and iPadOS 18. And there's something special about those three. There's something that links these. These are the ones that are going to get Apple Intelligence, which means Apple Intelligence is not coming to the Apple Watch, which doesn't really seem like a big surprise. It's not coming to the Apple TV, which I don't think you're shocked by either. But it's also not coming to the Apple Vision Pro. Yet each of those three platforms, they are getting updates that are worth noting. With the Apple Vision Pro, for instance, actually perhaps the most notable announcement is that it is finally being launched outside the US. 8 countries, including the UK, where I am, will be getting it soon. Pre-order dates for China, Japan and Singapore start on June the 13th, and buyers in Australia, Canada, France, Germany and here in the UK can pre-order from June 28. Now, people who pre-order then, those buyers, they will get headsets with the latest version of visionOS 1, but visionOS 2 has been announced for later in the year. And one of the things, perhaps the key thing, standout thing of it, is that it will bring a way to turn your regular 2D photos into what look like 3D spatial ones. I think this is another extension of that remove background business that Apple's been developing. It can kind of separate things out into layers, just move them around and create a 3D effect. And at least in the examples Apple's shown, that really does look amazing. Whereas Apple Watch looks like it's going to get kind of handier, really, as for one thing of many, watchOS 11 brings a check-in for it that was introduced to the iPhone last year. You can tell a friend you've got home safely. watchOS 11 also brings a new Vitals app that it kind of surfaces your important health data, what you care about the most, and the existing Smart Stack, if you use that, you will now see extra sections added to it that appear depending on where you are and what you're doing. So, for instance, if it's going to rain near you, a weather widget will be added to that stack. And perhaps the less handy side, Apple TV's tvOS is going to add yet more ways to interrupt you watching great TV. So now, with tvOS, if you fail to be lost in the plot, instead your mind wanders to, where have you seen that actor before? Well, now you'll be able to swipe down on your Siri remote and be told exactly where you saw that actor before. It will list details for each cast member in the current scene and actually also detail any music being played. Now, apart from that last bit about the music, this is actually the same kind of thing that Amazon Prime has been doing for some years now. So, although I prefer not being interrupted, if you want to know this stuff, it's good to see Apple TV gaining this feature to you, even if it is a very small edition. But speaking of small editions, this is the last thing. You've got to know this. This is great. It's also very small, but it's just great. In the whole of Apple's long WWDC 2024, there was one really nice short moment where they showed someone in a crowded lift wearing AirPods Pro. As you may know, if you use AirPods Pro, when your iPhone rings, Siri dips any music you're listening to and announces the call. Right now, you have to say, yes, I'll take the call, or no, you don't want to take it. But soon, Apple's going to make it so that instead of speaking any of that aloud, you can just gently shake or nod your head. I mean, I suppose technically it's the application of gyroscopes and all sorts of other technology features, but it's the application of it to a situation we can all find ourselves in. Apple is not behind on AI. It is way ahead on making things that are actually useful to us. Although, give it 10 minutes and doubtlessly we'll have Samsung Intelligence doing the same thing. That's it for this special edition of the Apple Insider podcast. Thank you very much for listening, and thanks to Clean My iPhone for supporting us. Do check out the show notes for a link to Clean My iPhone. And do remember to tune in to the next Apple Insider episode on Friday, because I can tell you already that host Wes Hilliard has begun installing the betas just like he told us he would. So, unless something crashes his devices and he can't come on the podcast at all, you and I will hear from him. And then, over the next weekend, it's that extra special. We've got not just a developer for you who's been to Apple Park right now, we've got one who is responsible for working with literally hundreds of other developers. So where now you and I have talked about what the new updates mean for us as users, he will have for us the inside story of what all this means to the developers of the apps that we love and that we rely on. Do join me for that, please. And now I'm off to resist installing the betas.